Okay, so I was asked how we mount orchids. To me, it seems like it's pretty self-explanatory, but I guess maybe it's because I've mounted hundreds of them. And yes, we have been extremely successful in mounting a lot of our orchids, but at the same time, it's kind of one of those you have to break a few eggs situations. So it's not that everything we've ever mounted has just grown abundantly and looked amazing all the time. But if you do things the right way, generally it shouldn't be too difficult for you to mount an orchid and be pretty successful in growing it. So what I have here is our front yard. We planted a set of triple Robolini palms. Robolini palms are some of the palms that we have found to be the most successful for us in mounting orchids. They have extremely hard bark. They don't grow very wide when it comes to the base, so unlike something like perhaps a queen palm, a royal palm, or even a coconut palm, once the base starts to grow on a Robolini, it doesn't really get much bigger. So it's not going to stretch your roots out as it grows taller. It's not going to cause you problems. It also has these great little nubs that the fronds were originally attached to. These nubs are almost impossible to break off, and it gives your orchid a lot of texture to really hold on to. Another reason I really like these is the bark or the skin of the palm tree is extremely porous. So once it starts to suck up water, it holds on to it for a little while. Probably similar to what you might find with tree bark in your potting mixture, or perhaps even something along the lines of tree fern. So it's going to hold on to it for a little while, but not too long as to rot your roots. So anyway, I've already prepped this tree with our watering system. If you notice, we have right here, you can see we have the 12-inch actuated drip irrigation. It's kind of probably hard for you to see, but right here, there's actually one of the actuators. It's a little drip line. The way this normally works is if the drip is facing up, it's going to run down the tube, eventually falling onto the tree. So this area, because there's a drip up here, there's a drip over here, and there's a drip back here, is going to get a heck of a lot of water. So what I have here is some kind of Vanda. I'm not exactly sure which one it is. This was given to me. Somebody who didn't want to grow Vandas anymore, was not really having a lot of success with them, and wanted to make sure that this Vanda wasn't going to die. You will notice here, this is the original parent, and then at the bottom here we have a kiki and another kiki growing next to that. Some okay roots, nothing too much to talk to home or write home about. Overall, we have a lot of dead roots here. Some people would cut these off. I am a rough and tumble kind of guy, so I will generally just rip them off. This is probably going to upset a lot of the orchid people I know. If it does make them feel any better, I did wash my hands before I started doing this, but regardless, this is how I do it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find a good spot for this. This orchid, I'm going to eventually want it to grow more toward the sun. In the evenings, the sun is over here, but in the mornings, the sun is coming from this side of the house. So I'm probably gonna put it on this side. I'm gonna angle it slightly, but I'm gonna put it right next to the drip line, and I'm gonna leave these two kikis growing off at an angle as well. So the reason I'm having everything kind of slightly angled is, one, it'll allow the plants to grow toward the sun. So this one, the bigger one, is gonna grow toward the sun this way. These will start to wrap around this way. But additionally, what I want is I want this plant to root heavily before it really starts to bloom. If I were to just simply attach it the way it is, but I would attach it dead straight up, what we would end up happening is a lot of the sun would come down, hit this, and it might start blooming a little early. Now you can always cut the bloom spikes off. Oh my God, cut the bloom spikes off? Yes. If you want your plant to grow and you want to get good roots, you're going to want to cut your blooms off so that your plant can put more energy into growing heavily. So anyway, what I have here is your standard green gardening tape, nothing fancy. A lot of times I will use, as some people may have seen in my other video, I will use zip ties. It's generally whatever I have handy. Zip ties are great for a tree that's not really going to grow very heavily in width, but it's also something that may get hit with a lot more wind or a lot more forceful action. These Robollinis are in the front of the house. They don't move that much, and they're not going to get hit with a lot of wind. So what I will do, I will pull off a pretty hefty amount. You can always attach it back to your roll here. And then I'm going to take this guy, and again, I'm going to put him on here right next to the drip line, and I'm going to cockeye him sideways. I'm just going to simply take the tape, wrap it around once, and then I'm going to find an additional spot. So I'll move all these roots out of the way here, and you can see all these roots down here. Yes, I'm bending them. Some people will freak out. And then I'm going to take this tape and I'm going to wrap it around some of these roots that I just bent so that they are all nice and cozy up against the palm. Then I'm just going to sit here, pretty simple, tighten a knot. Don't tie it too tight. You want it to at least have a little bit of room to breathe or expand. And then pretty simple. So nothing fancy here. If you don't like the way it sits, you can always adjust the fronds. You can always attach another piece of string. See how it keeps kind of falling over? So what I'll do, not string, sorry, this stuff. What I'll do is I'll take another piece, I'll pull it up to where I really want it to be. I'll find a little bit of a bare spot, and I will wrap that around, get it a little bit tighter up here to where I want it to be, and tie it off. And there we go. Very simple. You can always cut some of the extra tape off. Doesn't really bother me. In the long run, yeah, it's going to look pretty ugly. You have all this tape wrapped around everything, but with the amount of, well, especially of Vanda, with how fast the roots will grow, especially when I put seaweed fertilizer and such on it, you're going to find that within probably 3 to 6 months, you'll be able to easily remove all the tape that's attached to this because it's going to completely have adhered to this tree. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and turn the sprinkler system on, let this guy get a little bit of water. We generally are going to water our Vandas in the warmer times, which in South Florida is most of the time. We're going to water them 15 minutes a day pretty heavily for 2 times a day. And then in the winter, we'll probably cut that back to maybe 5 minutes, and we will base that depending on how much rain we're actually getting and or how cold it is. If it's colder, we're going to actually cut the water back entirely, where we may only do it once every 2 or 3 days, depending on how quickly things dry out. So I hope this is helpful. I will do maybe another video that explains how I would do this with perhaps a Phalaenopsis or a Cattleya or some other varieties. If you have one that you specifically would like me to do, please just let me know.